First has been part of policing for decades. All right, under Terry versus Ohio, it's not, we don't call it stop and frisk, it's Terry versus Ohio. And in that space where, it gives the officer who has reasonable suspicion that a crime is about to occur, a crime has occurred, to make that stop of that individual. That is the first part of that process. And then with reasonable suspicion, they now can move because they believe the person may be armed to the second part where they do the stop. That is the process, right? That has all been in policing for decades. Officers are not allowed to ride through the streets of the city of Philadelphia and just randomly stop anyone, particularly African American, but because but across the board, without any reasonable suspicion that something is occurring. We will continue to do that strategy as we go through our work in doing that. We are going to use what constitutional policing, which involves Terry stops, as part of our work as we move forward in addressing crime in the city of Philadelphia. But we will do it with, under the construct of the Constitution that allows us, with reasonable suspicion, to be able to make those stops. And I came from the neighborhood, why can't you? Until I realized I wasn't sexually abused, I wasn't physically abused. I didn't spend years in a foster care. Never see my father would leave when I was a young kid, but I had strong men in my family and around me to cover in, or both parents incarcerated, right? Or living, and I didn't live in a community that dealt with the level of violence. So what I got to see there is how you can change that trajectory. That's when I started to do the school diversion program, because you could see, right? You say that with a large percentage of the kids, if you put them in the system, they'll never get out. Like, oh, how are we doing? What are we doing there, right? I'm putting kids in the system 10 years of age for coming to school with a knife, putting him or her in a cell block for 6 hours, right? So I can prove that they won't do that again, right? And I tell people it wasn't until I put my daughter, on a Saturday, I took my daughter out to film her going through the arrest process, because as I'm now getting seeped into the space, I started to see, I'm walking in rooms, people look like, do you know what it's like to put a child into police custody? So I filmed my daughter. Halfway through the filming, I wanted to stop. I thought I was just traumatized and we were just acting, right? But to sit there, and so what it would make me understand it was that, it was okay when it was somebody else's child. Sure as heck wasn't when it was mine. And I would carry that into my work. And so what I see now is a very unique opportunity to change the trajectory of where our kids are going. We know by now that COVID was had a significant impact on the level of violence. We can see across the nation, right? When the system shut down, right? And so we can see, that happening. What we also can see now is many of particularly your major urban cities started to see this, as we call the regression to the mean, right? Things are now going back to potentially pre-COVID days, and so we can see that in the data. To your point, which you're very astute, we're starting to pick that up. Now, the Philly was moving at a much higher rate than some of our other cities, but we also went up significantly higher than many cities across the nation as well. And so we can now start to see there is some transitioning now, and it's actually on a kind of a steady a line going in that direction. Our goal now is, but if I just settle for getting back to pre-COVID numbers, then I'm still at, I think, 370 homicides, and that's just not good enough, right? So part of our work now is take that, as we see that regression coming back and we're going back in a positive direction, is now instituting good strategic policies and crime-fighting policies and working with the community to really push that even further. Right? Let's take that momentum and not be satisfied. We can sit back today, do nothing, and if the numbers work out, at the end of the year, everybody say, great. That's not good enough, right? We've demonstrated as a city that if we really, really work collaboratively together, we demonstrated that during my time when I was in the police department in 2013, 14, 15, and 16, where we could get those numbers down much lower. And so I will not, nor should we settle for just a regression, but really continue to put our strategies together to see how we can get the city, reduce those numbers even further. What we're going to do is start to meet with all of our partners. You'll see soon, we're meeting with all of our partners within the interiors of the city. SEPTA, obviously, creates a significant challenge just because, I think most time people don't know it's a whole nother city underneath,
right,
and then it's a city upstairs, it's up top, in which I have the core responsibility is working, the street level as they work down in their space. Not down, I guess I'm referencing Broad Street, more so than anything. But I mean, we will be working collaboratively. We've always worked with them collaboratively. We're always in contact with them. But as we move forward in our strategy, we're going to, especially as we start to do our work in Kensington, where we have a large members of their unsheltered use the subway, we'll be working to build out our more cohesive plan moving forward. We're in the preliminary stages of those, preparing to have those conversations. We haven't started them yet. We want to build out our plan, but they will be a part of our work, as well as all of the agencies in the city will be a part of our work, and our federal partners will be a part of our strategy. The schools, we're going to really start to do some work with the schools. We have identified about 18 to 20 schools that we feel have a significant level of challenges during their dismissals. So we'll be working with my former deputy in my office, now Craig Johnson, who's been honored to be the interim chief of the school safety at the school district, a phenomenal leader. We're working with him very collaboratively of how we can enhance our policing around those core targeted areas that we see through data that will help us. And so we're really excited about, continuing to build that relationship. Our goal, nothing more devastating for me, as you know, and you covered those stories, having young people shot at the doorstep of our schools. I mean, I thought I would never, ever in my lifetime, as somebody grew up in a neighborhood in West Philadelphia, went to Bartram, school was the safest place that I could ever be. Even during, we've been around for a while, even during the gang war days, there was this bright line around schools, right? And to see that broken was probably one of the most difficult things I could ever see, to be sitting there standing next to a mother who lost her child, at the doorstep of the school. And so we're going to really be working hard with our partners at the school district. Can I say we can stop it totally? I mean, sometimes these things are so predictable, but we can use the data to say where we potentially have schools that we feel have higher levels of problematic behavior, particularly after school, and that we can do some work to be able to support the school district. We are fully committed to work in collaboration with the school district to help them to minimize that level of violence that they're having. We will start to re-engage in our footbeat strategy and bike strategy, business corridors as well. We believe, despite the staffing issues that we have, that is an effective way for us to deploy our men and women using the data to deploy them effectively across the city, but particularly in those areas that we talked about that had the higher level of violence. And we also think it's a great way for our men and women to really learn policing. Getting out of that car, getting in the community, touching people, listening to their concerns, really builds the foundation of who they are in the future. And so, that was during my tenure in the police department before I retired. Footbeats would be very much a part of that work in our strategy, and I feel, my team feels, we believe that is also an equally important strategy as we move forward, and particularly as the mayor highlighted in her safety plan moving forward as well. It's going phenomenally well. Adam Gear is an excellent selection for the job. We have been meeting and talking day one. I think many of you, if you remember, Everett Gillison kind of played in that role. If you remember, Deputy Mayor Everett Gillison kind of played that role under Mayor Nutter at the time. And so I was very familiar with having somebody in the space who could be your colleague and cohort and as you move through to the safety space. And so we have moved very effectively to start to build our relationship, which has been great. And what Adam was able to bring to me is all of the other services. So he's working in the gun violence supports, area of the city. How does that align with my work? I'm able to share with him, here's my strategy. Now you can help us as we work in Kensington, for example. He can work behind the scenes to bring those entities together to the table as a conduit. So we definitely have been able to create a lot of synergy. Because I'm doing the crime fighting, right? And so what he enables me to do is now help he be a great partner in helping us build those community assets and those city assets and all those other things that can be bring to bear, not just for, I mentioned Kensington, but for all of our strategies. So I think he's going to be an excellent partner. No fights yet, but I think we will both understand our role. He respects the role of the commissioner in my crime fighting, just as I equally respect his role as being a good partner in helping us build those bridges in places, particularly where we've never had, and as we move forward with our budget cycles and things like that. So it's evolving, as you probably know. It's a new position. I think you all know that. But I think right now is really positioned to be a significant benefit to the police department and the city overall. Yeah. I've been very frank. I mean, sometimes I think we ignore the fact that we're one of the poorest cities in America, urban cities in America. And when you go into some of our more challenging communities, that's even, those numbers even higher, right? And so we know what that manifests is, and so we definitely have to be very strategic in how we go into our communities, which is going to be a great challenge for us. Is getting into these communities in a different way, working with the community groups in those areas to really bring about some sustainable change, right? And not these kind of ebbs and flows. Like, we have to build capacity of these communities. The argument is that we don't want policing. Okay, right? I get it, and I share, you hear me, but we get called millions, 2 million plus times a year. People call 911. I mean, what is that? I mean, we've been at this for a while now. What are those things that, we are going to replace? Someone calling 911 because, they're being domestic abuse, or they're being, there's a rape in progress, there's a burglary in progress. I mean, we recognize that there's a role for us in this space, but we have to build other capacities in those space. We have to find, community anchors that can help us to address that violence. First and foremost, is setting the tone as a leader of the organization, and setting the tone by how important community relations is to us as an organization. You will start to see us moving in that direction, because one of the things we just don't do is, you'd be surprised how much good we do that you don't even hear about it. Right, because we haven't set a platform and a strong communication strategy to let people know, to see that, right? There was a great article, I think Ubinas did the other day, of a woman coming back because she went into some kind of she had a breathing difficulty as a result of some underlying condition, and our officers were able to I think so. We have to start from a communication strategy, letting people know, all the positive things we do, so they can start to see us in a different way. We have to build a brand that people want to see, because I think, many of the work that we do is not warrior work, it's guardian work, right? Much of the work that we do is service to the community. And so I think we have to start showing that. I think we have to train our officers better on what community policing is. I tell people, community policing is like coming in and just say hi to you, right? That's it. And it may be, hey, how you doing today? And when you walk away, hey, man, but if I don't, every contact we make is community policing. And we have to start to embed that into the organization, that every time we touch somebody in the community, that's community policing. How we treat them in that moment, what we do for them in that moment, is what they're going to walk away from. I can give you a ticket, but if I treat you with respect and dignity, and you may not like the ticket, but you didn't walk away disliking me. We have to build that structure within our organization in a consistent way. I mean, here's the reality. In my career, we've gone from be tough on crime, soft on, the pendulum was always dictated, right? It was always dictated. Every you turn around, whether it was an election cycle, whatever it may have been, and we've always shifted. We have to plan ourselves now. We have to stake ourselves in the ground and say, hey, guess what? Yes, we're going to do this type of policing. We're going to do arresting that, but a good portion of our work, a majority of our work, is in community policing, and really set that tone across the organization, Mr. Baldwin, that community policing is all of us, but also creating those opportunities. You'll start to see that I'll be looking to bring civilians into my community policing space, because you can't have community policing if you don't have people from the community in it. And so I started to build out, as we do our community partnership and our work and develop our that work, civilians will now come into our space to be a part of the work, because then that sets an example to the community. Oh, it's just not the police department dictating to you what we do. I keep telling you, it's not policing the community, it's community policing.